to take up. And the one we're going to take up first is an ordinance to amend Chapter 14 of ordinances for the city of Mobile, Alabama, entitled Contracts. And I'd ask Mr. Woods to give us an overview of this proposed ordinance.
Thank you. So let me start off by saying, one, thank you all for considering this. This is a step for us, but there's no rush on it. So if there are conversations you all need to have in the aftermath or questions, just let us know. But the reason that we came up with these changes is twofold. One is because the current ordinance constrains what we do time-wise substantially. It puts a minimum 3-week turnaround on anything that goes. It's the week that we set it up, the first week that it sits on the agenda, and then the second week. And so that's a 3-week on anything that is over $15,000, period. And this change in this ordinance, and I'm going to go through some of the major changes. The second reason is that state law just recently changed now, in that after years and years of sitting at the same number, the bid law now allows us to go from 15 to 30. And on public works, it allows us to go from 50 to 100. That just happened this year in 2023. And so what we tried to do is actually make the ordinance align with not only that aspect of state law, but what we actually do procedurally here to move things faster. And the reason for that is Mobile, we've got a problem. And the problem is we're going to have a lot more going on than we have ever had in the next coming years. So think about the creation. A number of you all were here when the CIP was actually funded some years ago. And so $21 million going into the ground, you already know it causes a number of constraints as far as capacity is concerned, internally and externally. Now you have an additional $1 million going into the ground per council district, and that is going to be cumulative. That on top of all the large scale projects that we have going on. So we're going to have more resources, we're going to have less capacity, and we're not going to have any more time as far as these things go. So that's what I wanted to point out first. So what changes about this ordinance, in addition to the 15 going to 30 and the 50 going to 100, is also the increase of settling the lawsuits going from 5 to 50. There used to be no limit. I think it's totally reasonable for you all to decide that number, but that number is based on the old Public Works number, which I think typically, Mr. Williams was the one who started the tradition of letting something go if it was 50,000 with on a first read. That number came from the Public Works number. We've held on to that number as far as the lawsuits are concerned. A public work is an expanded definition. We made sure that definition stayed expanded in this version of the ordinance. Public works is any building, anything that's owned by the public or operated by the public that you all would authorize that being worked on. That being said, a very large amount of things would still remain on the agenda and just can't be done without agenda approval, whether that's designated public works over 100, whether that's an emergency still has to be notified, council still has to be notified about it. That changed in the Public Works law too. And then also what you would look at is the definitions that came from the original ordinance that we're leaving in, dealing with how you talk about a contract and what a contract actually is. So those are the changes that we have. The other things are operational and spatial. So questions?
We'll go with the committee members first, and Mr. Reynolds, since you're likely to have the most questions.
This is called the Reynolds Amendment.
Well, I won't be carrying it, I can tell you that. But number one, this is very difficult for me to understand. It says, just in definitions, it says, as used in this chapter, the term contract means a whole paragraph of things. And then The next one says the term contract is defined as, and it says some more, and then the term contract, some additional definition. It seems like everything's hinged on the contract. Can you help bring some clarity for me on what section I or this section 1 says, like, as we go down it?
Sure. So I'll start at the very beginning. That chapter, the reason that set out that way is because in the past there were some distinctions about what a contract is and isn't. Everything in I think everybody agrees should be in a contract. Everything in double I, the first one, those things are up for discussion of whether or not they're contracts or not. That's why it's set out that way. So let me tell you this. So
In section I, what does this say? Like, just generally, what does it say?
anytime you expend city money, whether it is for goods or services, it should be considered a contract. And so it's very specific in that all of these things should be within the purview of the council because you're using city resources.
And it says it doesn't include these other things.
Where are you looking? Where are you asking this question?
In section I.
Right. Okay.
It doesn't include, the term does not include, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. It does not include purchases of ordinary items of necessity, including but not limited to fuel, medical supplies, uniforms, computers, software license, copiers, equipment, so on and so forth. That's number 4. 3 has, this one was interesting. Number 3 in that paragraph, purchases of, or in either specifically or in the annual budget of the city. So do I read that to say that if we put it in the budget, then it's not a contract?
No.
I think you went back to the beginning of the same line where three started.
Yeah.
Purchases of, 4 starts the same way. But number 3, purchases of, so this is not a contract.
Right.
Purchases of, or in either specifically or in the annual budget of the city.
Right.
It's the same line.
Number 3, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. That's okay.
It's been a long morning. Connection with utilities,
Yes.
including but not limited to electricity, gas, and telecommunications.
So,
So if we budget for those, then those are not defined as a contract. Is that my understanding? That
right.
correctly?
But that's what you do already. Yes. Yes. You're stating that in the affirmative, but that's what you do already. Think about it. You have not voted to pay an electricity bill for any
Yeah.
building that we own,
Right.
but we do that anyway.
Okay. So number 4, purchases of ordinary items of necessity. These are not contract items.
Yes.
Fuel, medical supplies, uniforms, computers, software license, copiers, equipment, business equipment, insurance, dues, subscription, travel expenses. Now, some of those we do approve as by way of a contract currently. You would agree with that, correct?
No, you do approve, but not by way of a contract. It's
Uniforms?
right.
That's on our budget. I mean, our agenda.
I know, but not through a contract. What I'm saying is we do that through a purchase order. That's what I'm saying.
Somebody else can hop in there. I haven't gotten very far on this one.
I'm sorry, Mr. Carroll? Got any questions?
Voice my opinion on these two things. I don't care to dig into the weeds, but repetitive expenditures, whether it be purchase order contracts from 15 to 30 or from 50 to 100. By the time you get to 10 or 20, you spend $2 million in city's money without the council's approval, which I have problem with because it affects the budget depending on what we're spending it on. So if you have 20 items that are if you have 20 items on a contract that are $100,000 or less that the council doesn't have to approve on, you've already spent $2 million. And where's that money?
No.
Well, that's what we're saying. You're asking for up to $100,000 of approval without the council.
Let me say this, okay? You can't spend that over and over. It's only one time that you get to expend the 100 on per project.
Per project. That's what I
Per
just said.
project,
So
yeah.
by the time you've done multiple $100,000 projects without the council's approval, you could do 10 or 20 in a year. You spent $2 million without council approval. So I kind of think that the council needs to see those, whether they're purchase orders or not. You could go say, well, we got $1 million. I mean, we got 100,000 here in the purchase order, 100,000 here in the purchase order, $50,000 here. Those add up no matter how you look at it. And that's another way of doing things. And also you got contract employees, which fall into this too, that nobody's even talked about, that fall into this, that you now have the ability to, okay, less than $100,000, let's just go do this. You have that, we're faced with that right now. And that's been an item of contention from the last council that's made its way over here. So, in saying this, I think that going this high can somewhat, usurp the power and authority of the council, at this level.
So let me say two things. One is the administration cannot expend money beyond the budget without council approval. So each line item in the budget, you would have to stay within those confines. You can't do that. Secondly, all right, it's the term contract employee is a made up term that has no significant meaning. It's like say it's a lot like having a tall little person, right? It's a conundrum. So you're either one or the other. You're either a contractor or you're an employee. You can't be both. So that's in fact, nowhere does that term exist anywhere in your ordinances or state law. I want to explain to everybody that
Definition
this
of
is
contract employees, Mr. Woods.
this is completely within you all's discretion. If you want to change something or do something, that's fine. I think that's within the governing body's authority. The reason that we're asking you to do it this way is because it takes an incredible amount of time and resources from the professionals who work for the city, and this is what they're asking for. Because the way we do it now, we have shoved a Class 8 ordinance into a Class 2 city, and it takes so much time to put these things on the agenda. It takes so much time to work through them, and there's a cumulative effect. So if we want to pare this down, I think that's fine. This is just the opening discussion. There can be philosophical differences, but what I do think is this is what pushes you through to get the projects that you want done. So
Before you move on, are you finished?
with that part, yes.
Okay. Two things. I'm looking at the budget. Nowhere in the budget are there line item contracts. Nowhere.
No, they aren't.
Not anywhere. So that's misleading. The other thing, there are two types of employees, merit or non-merit. So that's contract employees. So, I mean, let's just be straightforward here. Now, I just don't want to go forward through this and find out down the road that I missed an opportunity to look over a contract that has a direct impact to this city. And it was just passed on by us because it was $100,000.
Let me ask this question. We have two committee members who seem to have philosophical objections to any alteration to the current arrangement. So I want to make sure that's correct. What I understand you both to be saying is you don't want any alteration to the current arrangement. Okay. Well, you were in here earlier saying you just wanted to go away.
Well, I haven't gone through it in its fine detail, but I mean, there are things that we've been preoccupied with a lot of other matters, I guess I should say, and it's required a whole lot of my headspace to try to get through all those where I haven't been able to get completely, into the weeds on this. But, as I'm reading it here today, I'm finding maybe some opportunities, but also some, things that we shouldn't adopt from District 4's rep. And I can have the floor.
Well, let's go
raise-
around. Let's go
Okay.
around. Okay, Mr. Small, anything?
Yeah, I'd like to join my colleague Will. I'm not too much in favor of seeing any changes either. With just due respect and not trying to disrespect anyone. But I really feel like that we just let this go like it is, that the council will continue to be overlooked. I looked at someone in the audience today, and I believe that he's brought back on contract, but it was never brought back to the council. Don't know how much he's making, but I'm pretty sure that he's got some big role in a department. I mean, it was never brought to the council as in, this individual is here and et cetera. And I don't want to continue just to go down this road, especially for future council be in a position not to know what's going on. And I'd rather be in this position where we at now, at least, for the stuff that do come through us, that I get questioned about it, that I could be able to get some answers.
So I'm still open to all your questions, and it looks like it might be a dead issue. Looks like it might be a dead issue, and I think that's completely up to the council. That's completely up to the council. Let it be reminded that when things take longer, ultimately that would probably be the decision. Like, that's a decision that we all have to make, and so I can understand that decision.
Prime example today, first read, over $500,000 council passed.
So the interesting thing about that, okay, I'm not saying you have to do any of these things. What I'm saying is there is a legal option that would have had to go on the agenda anyway. But what people don't understand now is when you have a gaping hole 2 years ago, if you had a gaping hole in the street, we had to advertise it and we had to bid it. State law has now changed to where now you don't have to bid it. You don't have to advertise it. However, this ordinance would require it still come to the council for notification, because we do think the council is a very important part of what seems to happen. But it does not seem that we have the ability to move it from 15 to 30 or 50 to 100. That may be the case, but that's completely within the council's purview. I mean, this is completely on you all to change or not change this. And if the council, we don't have the votes, it's understandable.
Mr. Woods, thank you. But the analogy used with the gaping hole for me, that's pretty big. I've had several gaping holes, the last of which was at the end of Warren Street by council, which was open for a year and a half.
We're going to move on to Ms.
That I
Ms.
asked the
Gregory.
administration to get, and we just got it almost a year and a half later.
But let's not divert into potholes. Ms.
I've
Gregory,
already
please.
driven into that pothole, Mr. Chairman.
We don't want to go down too many potholes today because we never get out of here, but I think just one of the questions when we were talking about the definitions, employees are not contract employees, they're, I guess, appointed. Maybe that's their title, because I think we always call them contract employees. And I remember before, when there were appointments made, we were getting notified about the appointments, as they come on. Not that we have a vote or anything, because it was within your purview to do it, but we were just notified about them coming on board, what they would be doing, that sort of thing. Probably we're talking about Joe Kennedy. Is that who you were talking about? Yeah.
They know what I'm talking
We're not gonna name, we're not gonna name any names,
Oh,
Councilwoman.
sorry. Okay, well, never mind. Because I saw him sitting up front. So anyway, maybe that was just part of what CJ was talking about, but otherwise I don't have any other questions.
Mr. Penn.
I talked enough today, so it's
All of us have.
Oh, 1, 2. Okay, there we go.
Got it?
All right. I just want to make sure we don't have to send this to Attorney General, that we don't, and, it said Public Works on there. I just want to make sure we not, I don't want to break any laws. Are we breaking any laws with this one, with Public Works being mentioned in it?
No, Mr. Penn.
Okay,
It's-
I was just making sure. I saw Public Works. I'm like, oh man, I don't want to direct them. I just don't want to do that. All right, so section 14 /6, getting back. I know it says consultant, training, professional service, lease and purchase. So that means that up to $100,000, all these different type of services could be provided without coming to council. Is that
They could be. So, and there are a number of, so with the economy changing, inflation, and this, the last time this law changed, Ms. Gregory and I are probably in high school, right? And so,
Way back then, huh?
so it's so what I would say is it presents an opportunity. If we don't want to take it, that's fine. But what you would have is the law allows for that opportunity. If you all want a different number, then change the number.
I want to see it.
Yeah, I think we didn't. Yeah, that's not something, from me that I would like to see. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Woods?
So what it kind of just going and forgive me. Right now, as far as emergency procurements, I mean, is there a number on that, or is there just to get it done and explain later? And I guess what kind of, because that's something and again, I'm not talking about the $500,000 that got spent today. More of, I mean, what's in place to ensure that the work gets done without having to go through the whole process and we got to vote on it, I guess.
So right now, the number and the number right now for the council is 30,000, right? So that's what I'm sorry, 15,000. But what that's changed to is 30. But on Public Works, anything you're doing to procure that type of work, the process is the same. 3 things are changing in state law. 1, an emergency no longer has to be bid or advertised. State law just changed. And then 2, the number went from 50 to 100. So on the city side, we would still have to do under the old ways. City side, what we would have to do is declare it an emergency, right? And then we don't have to advertise immediately. We didn't have to bid. We could get 3 folks, but we'd still have to advertise afterwards, getting like 3 bids. So that's an antiquated way of doing things. We have to do something. If you all don't like the 100,000, fine. You could do it. The 30,000, the 15 to 30,000, that's probably a much bigger gape of dealing with things. And then the other issues of the legal settlements, what number you all want that to be. Because there's some of these, I'll give you a good instance. If it's a car wreck, we know it's clear liability. We have to sit and wait 3 weeks while that person got a rental car, right? And we're paying for that rental car. There's a cumulative effect there. That's a smart way to do things. You got to remember, these confines did not come into place until 2 things happened. And I think at least 3 of you all were here. One thing was the settlement of the Solid Waste Authority, which I remember standing in this room saying we should probably settle. It's a waste of money, but that's not what we did. Thank you. And 2, the current ordinance was born out of strife. Okay, it was built in to slow things down so that everything comes to a halt. That the current ordinance, that's what happened. There was no input from the staff on the current version of the ordinance, not procurement, not engineering, not public works, not legal. Then we went in and hodgepodge. So now what I'm asking you all is to take a look at this in whole and look at what the state law now allows you to do, because other cities are moving this way. Because when you start putting that $4 million per district in the ground over the next 3 years, you're going to have a capacity problem internally. You're going to have a capacity problem with contractors. We're going to have a capacity problem with resources, and it's going to come to a grind at some point, because that's what the old ordinance is meant to do. So just think about that.
Mr. Chairman.
Wait. I think the mayor has. Mayor?
So I just like to, and Ricardo said it pretty explicitly, but I'm not sure if we were all to sit here. I know I couldn't tell you. I can't tell you a $20,000 purchase we made 3 months ago, 6 months ago. And so when we make these purchases and you say you want to know about it, what is it you want to know about it so that you can testify that, yes, we had knowledge of that beforehand. So let's think about if that is the concern, there may be a way that if we, to me, the more transactions at the smaller end of this thing, from 15 to 30 range than there's the 100. The 100 can get in your pocket, in a big hurry. So consideration for maybe the smaller one would be, from my perspective, something that would be help the staff more and help expedite things more. And it's not just the 3 weeks that that it's tied up here, and you can have the check written and get it to the vendor, and just you get that cycle going quicker and move on to something else. So I'd like you to think about that maybe after we do these things that fall in that window, if it went from 15 to 30, we can have a printout, let it come to your desk. You can see it. And if all of a sudden that thing is too much, you all of a sudden we spend $1 million on purchases like that and you're uncomfortable with it, there's nothing that says we can't change back. But I just want to, instead of just a hard no, what we're here is really for the purpose of trying to make things more efficient. It's not trying to hide anything from you. It's just trying to move the ball forward quicker, and which becomes just a challenge. So, thank you.
Mr. Carroll.
I can be reasonable and flexible on the lower end, but I was just trying to read something. It's when you were talking about the larger stuff in contracts, there are bid laws that govern what has to be bid and what doesn't. So when you said that, there's some things that have to be bid anyway, but when they're bid and those contracts come back, that should be a council approval. And I don't know if you misspoke or if you just left that out of your sentence right there. I'm amenable to thinking over the $30,000 thing. I think the little things, maybe something worth to look at. I didn't really concentrate on that. That big number jumped out there at me, and I just didn't run any type of thinking on that. Give me a week or a couple of days, think it over, and let's revisit it.
Mr. Daves, there's a lot of this that I don't necessarily agree with. Redefines a lot. I do see at least 2 subparagraphs that I'm certainly okay with. The city may send and accept electronic signatures on its contracts, agreements, and documents, and rely on electronic records and signatures to the fullest extent authorized by the Uniform Electronic Transactions Act. I agree with that. That probably should help speed things up.
That's the way of the world now, Ben.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That should help.
That's
Okay.
good point. Really good point. What we're trying to do is bring our ordinance into 2023, 2024, and the 21st century. It's antiquated in a lot of ways. I also want to point out some things. So one thing is, and this comes as no surprise to you all, you have some of the most capable professionals working for the city that I've ever had the pleasure to work with. Okay, specifically in the finance department, but procurement across the board. Ms. Sapp does an excellent job. Her folks do an excellent job keeping their eye on the constraints of the budget. Right, the budget mandates what we spend and don't spend. We cannot overspend without coming to the council, and that's for each. We cannot overspend without coming to the council at any point. So every department is confined to what is within the budget. That's per the council. There's a huge, I think, check that we're not thinking about. The other part of it is, and I think this is to Mr. Carroll's point, there are a number of things that don't have to necessarily be bid. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the way that our current ordinance falls is even if it does not have to be bid. All right. If it's in the $50,000 range, we still have to come to the council per the current ordinance because of the constraints, the way that it's written. it requires it to come to you all and sit for that 3-week period. So I'm talking about something that is 15,000, all right? $15,500. May not have to be bid, but it still has to come to the council after it goes through the entire routing process. And granted, on the days that we're not here taking care of city business, city operations are still going on, and that's cumulative. And I think you all know that that's cumulative in a way that we really can't talk about. So
Thank you, Mr.
Mr.
Woods.
Reynolds.
All right, second section,
sorry.
D.
Go ahead.
Of something that is possible to improve the efficiency. Section D under 14-2 contract procedures. I like this one. Organizations serving a public purpose. All commitments to fund organizations, regardless of funding source, shall require a performance contract and resolution of the council finding a public purpose for the expenditure.
Don't we already do that?
Yes, but that was a change that we made.
Okay.
Yes.
Also here, this one I don't mind. It seems under 14-3 under change orders. Changes or alternates provided for in the original bidding where there is no difference in price on the change order from the original best bid on the alternate. Like that one's pretty good. And then I have a question. I feel like I'll look at some agendas. Maybe it's the school board agenda where they do a consolidated line item on their agenda. I don't know if there's a lesser approval that's required, but they'll approve, say 50 things at one time, maybe of lesser significance. I don't know if there's something to explore in that regard, that if there is, we do a consolidated approval at some point, if that could help speed things up. I don't know if anybody's given that much thought, or if it improves time at all, where the requirement to place this time, you say 3 weeks it takes. So it takes a week to get something on the agenda is what I'm being told, and then 2 weeks of approval, unless it's under consent, right? If we can cut down on the week's time it takes to get it on the agenda, with some lesser standard to get it on the agenda, and, say it just takes a couple of days, I mean, do we save a week or in that?
Let me ask a clarification.
Sure.
It can be 2 weeks before it gets to me. But I have to approve all the contracts. So it's not 3 weeks, it's close to 5 weeks, because with the number of people that have to sign off on whatever gets to the mayor, it can take anywhere from 2 to 4 additional signatures.
That's it. So yes, to the mayor's point, that is at a minimum. I'm talking, that's if we are moving at lightning speed. Okay. That's what we're dealing with on a regular basis administratively. Let me say this for the very last time. There's no rush on this. All right.
I heard.
And this is completely up to you all to speed things up is the way you see fit. This is
Look, can I?
We'll take some contracts and we'll track them just to show you what this is like.
Yeah.
Then so what would happen, let's say it's $30,000 purchase, where it would be if we didn't do that.
Can you?
Wait a minute. Let's let Mr. Carroll go, and then we'll come back to Mr.
Can
Reynolds.
you track them in clusters? You understand what I mean by that, or can you track them by performance, what they are, whether they're public works, whether they're infrastructure, whatever they are, those types of contracts and those amounts. I got a headache. My thinking was to ask you, you said that it takes it 2 weeks to get to you. So are you suggesting that you want to let a department head sign off on a contract of $100,000 or less before it even gets to you, before it gets to us?
no,
Is that-
that's not what we're asking.
Okay.
So what we're asking you all to do, right, is you're thinking $100,000 cumulative. Okay. This
No,
is not
single.
Well-
single, not cum, single.
So the mayor has to sign off on it, right? You're not designating anything else. Very few of these are going to be like something that's routine. This is when you're talking about this is sidewalks. These are things that pop on a regular basis. And I think to Mr. Carroll's question is, no, it still has to go through the same process. So finance still has to say the money's there, right? Legal still has to look at the contract. And this is every item that goes on your agenda has to be routed this way. The department has to start with it. They've got to look at it. They've got to get the bid back. All these things. What we're asking you all to do is something totally different that's never been done before.
Well,
and I know that's shocking.
I'd really like to think about it. The guy that normally sits in that chair. Yeah, DeLapp. I mean, if it were possible to do a multiple award task order where one contract was written with capacity to the city, or the city had one contract written with capacity to use those dollars to a certain amount within the budget. You understand what I mean?
We're working on that. Yes, I understand exactly what you mean.
Would maybe grant the ability for some of the smaller ones to go up to a certain amount without it, without the council feeling like you've gone so far and we don't know what we're spending, because we would have created a MATOC within the contract, within the budget itself for various departments and needs.
So let me just give you all, if you would, an example of what, since you referenced Colonel DeLapp, of what that would entail. Okay. So you got bulk material purchases, you got minor sidewalks, you've got geotechnical, environmental, electrical traffic, small construction, portalets, and anything dealing with our public buildings. So those are all things that come before you right now that cause an extreme amount of busy work because of the current ordinance.
But I would have a concern with professional services, architectural engineering awards, things like that, because that signifies something else that's coming and we don't even know what's coming. All of a sudden, hey, we had this contract out for design and professional services. Now we're dealing with a contract to build something. We never knew what was coming. See, so that takes our authority away. So I'd have a hard time with that. Let's think about a way of implementation without usurping, or I shouldn't say usurping the council authority, but without taking away any of the authority that the council has. But right now, I'm kind of not in favor of what I'm looking at.
Mr. Daves. Yes. All right. This kind of comes to mind with this consolidated agenda item. If there was the will to say we are going to $30,000 on these smaller items, maybe excluding some categories, professional service or something, I don't know. Is there a possibility to do, require it to be an agenda item that there is a transactional ledger, essentially, say going back a week or 2 weeks or a month long, where you're pre-approved for all these smaller transactions up front, but you're bound by the law every 2 weeks to put on the agenda your transactional ledger, just for basically for informational purposes.
Same thing as the MATOC.
Let me.
Yes.
Follow me, where you're approved $30,000 or less for these categories, but you don't have to do the full bid packet item, but there's
Sure.
a transactional ledger showing what your expenses were for the
Up
past
to a set
2
amount.
weeks.
Yes. So
Would that speed things up?
But up
No.
to a set amount.
no, it wouldn't. No,
Why
it wouldn't.
not?
Because it still requires it to come to the agenda.
It's a reporting agenda,
I
not an approval.
I hear what you're saying. It would still require.
We're just going to consent. We don't know. It requires no vote.
Wait.
We're not
Requires no
going to
vote.
fix
It's
this
just an
today.
informational item.
Okay.
Right, no
But
vote.
let's
No
find
vote.
a way. But we're not. gonna fix it.
That's I get that point. Let me also point this out to you all. There are a number of things here that people are asking questions about that are already in the old ordinance that don't go on the agenda.
Like,
And I think, like electrical bills that are already in the budget, like those things, like those are costs. There's a ton of costs that we vote on in the budget that just don't come. I think it's important that we point that out too. So that's I don't want us to go backwards.
like
what
the
I'm saying.
$500,000 in overrun at the cities. Utility
My point is that if it's been raised on our side, that line of sight is important, right? That we still want to be able to see it, and then it's raised on from the administration side that the small transactions are eating up people's time, is there a way for us to give you the pre-approval for that? And then your only requirement is to basically give us a receipt. In the past 2 weeks, we spent the taxpayer money on X, Y, and Z. No vote. It's just a requirement in our rules that it shall be shown a transactional ledger on every agenda, or once a month or once every
It
2
could be
weeks.
done during a monthly financial report, placed on the agenda.
I would tell you, yes, that's a possibility. I would want to confine that to what you're voting on now that you wouldn't be voting on. Because there's a lot more that falls into that category.
Sure, yeah, sure. So I mean, that's what I'm saying. Including the things and maybe an expansion of some sort, not this total redefinition of a contract, but an expansion of some sort of items that are 30, not 15,000, but say 30,000 or less. You pick up a $15,000 bit there, and then the categories for which those expenses could be is not reduced, maybe even expanded a touch. Then we've made some progress. Maybe it's not the whole apple.
We know your concerns better than we did. Why don't we let staff think about, and we'll come back to y'all, as Wood says, it's not, we're not gonna get this done today or by the end of the year. We'll come back with you with a plan that makes it very clear, not quite as complicated, where it's transparent and you're comfortable. And we'll come back to them, sometime in January.
Okay.
Mark, we
The
can-
ball's in your court.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you get an interim idea, it's okay to talk about it. You know what I mean? You know, because the ups and downs and everything.
Okay, we're gonna move
Oh,
on.
wait, Celia, are you gonna be here?
Okay, we're gonna move on
Man, my
To-
head is really hurting. I don't know why.
updating the schedule of business license codes and what was it, alcoholic beverages? Alcoholic beverage licenses?
I have, I'm gonna hand these out just in case you didn't bring yours with you.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yes, we gotta change Joel's slide. I'm gonna give you this.
Okay, thanks.
Wanda Ramon.
She's got a handout, Ben.
Thank you, man.
Oh, yeah.
That, well, first of all, that was a lot of reading. You hear me? That I could not, for some reason, I could not retain it all. You know, I tried to read through it twice. I was only able to hold a little bit.
So I know that y'all had a few concerns that when we met. So what we want to do today is address those and see, any other concerns that you might have. So thank you. So the first one is the general contractors. So I know that what we're trying to implement is to change all of the general contractors, the home builders, and the subcontractors all to the same factor, which is that 0.0025. And we actually spoke to the Home Builders Association, and they have no issue as far as making that change.
Now, let's stop for a
Oh,
minute
whoa.
because hold on for a minute. Stop for a minute because when
Yes.
I was briefed on this, it had to be explained to me what you're talking about.
Sure, yes, sir.
So if we go to this 0.0025,
Yes, sir.
tell us let's say you're a home builder, okay? Tell us how that works.
So the change is currently, if you're a general contractor, including a home builder, you're paying a flat rate of $220 for your business license.
220?
120,
120.
okay, flat. If you are a subcontractor, which is like an electrician or, an AC contractor, you are paying your business license based off of gross receipts. So our goal was to try to make it fair across the board between general contractors, home builders, and subcontractors. So in the paperwork that you have, you'll see that they've all been changed to the same.
0.0025
Correct.
of,
Their gross receipts, less minus any subs. So if you're a general contractor, you would subtract out your subs to come up with that number.
okay, let's say you're I'm going first because I want to make sure we all understand what we're talking about. So let's just take a very simple example. You're a home builder, okay? And you give price of $100,000. Okay, to build this house. $100,000 to build this house,
Mhm.
of which that's what you're going to get paid. And from that $100,000, you're going to pay the subs. You're going to pay the subs $75,000. Okay. And
That's correct. Then you're going to subtract out your subs when you go to report your gross receipts
you'll pay
So-
0.0025 of
Of the gro-
$25,000
of the gross receipts. Yes, sir.
of the $25,000
That's
that you're
correct.
keeping.
Correct.
And the subs would pay 0.0025 of the $75,000 they're splitting between them, right?
That's correct.
And they would have all, and this is where I got tripped up. Let's say you have and that's just the fee to build the house. That doesn't include the materials and so forth. Is that right?
It's based off of, it's your gross receipts. So, like I said, if it's 100,000, you're making the 25, that's the 25 is what you're going to report.
Yeah, but let's say you're the framer, okay? And you're the framer and you buy all the lumber to do the framing.
Mhm.
When you buy that lumber to do the framing, you're paying the sales tax. The framer's paying the sales tax.
No, the builder's paying the sales tax. Framers don't buy that stuff. I understand. Yeah. Yeah.
Not for retail sales.
What? You pay sales tax on everything you buy, Ben.
So, make sure I understand.
That's why I brought this up.
All right. Framer goes out, he orders a lumber package for a house.
Framer doesn't, the contractor
I'm sorry.
does.
Contractor orders a lumber package for a house. You're telling me when he buys that, and he's got it on file that he's not, that he's buying it wholesale, he has to pay sales tax on it then?
We pay sales tax at 10% on every piece of material we buy. And here's the flaw in this. Not every home builder or contractor is a paper contractor. Some contractors self-perform all 16 divisions or all 13 divisions except for the 3, which are mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. That's why they became sales and use initiative contractors in the beginning, because of what was called where you did the work yourself. You self did it, meaning that I do my concrete, I do my masonry, I do my framing, I do my sheetrock, I do my painting, I do all of that under my license with my guys and my individuals. So what you're doing now is for that guy that is a $1 million or less contractor a year, you're just taxed him 3 times. You tax him on sales tax, you tax him on the business license, then you tax him again with sales and use. See, so that's inappropriate for those guys. And there are a lot of those guys out there. Not everybody's a paper contractor doing $2 million a year and subcontracting everything out. And for those guys, they still have a big handicap because they're buying the material, and then the labor subs are coming out there and they're not paying anything in use tax. You understand? So if you're calling it sales and use, but I'm paying 10% over here, 10% by city right now, then I got to come back again and pay another 0.0025 sales and use tax again. I'm getting double tax. Yeah.
So we knew this was complicated.
Yeah.
All right, but this is the only complicated part, having to do with contractors, general contractors, and the home builders. Now, the home builders, in our conversations with them, Donna's conversations, they were okay doing this. Until yesterday, we met with the general contractors out with, at their office with Charlotte Koff and 4 general contractors. And what we realized is because of the complexity of it and because of the timeline of not having enough time to absorb it, I said, forget it.
Okay.
Let's do this. You've been paying $120 for probably 30 years or 20 years. Let's go to $500 for the next year. We're going to bump it up to $500, and that's what you will pay. That will be your fee. Instead of 120, you'll pay 500. And then during this next year, we will get a committee of them and let's say finance, and we will look at other cities or what is the best way to consider for 2025 a way to modify this. When Jim Barber called Councilman Carroll
Yeah.
and said, the general contractors, what we've done, he said, well, I'm going to call the home builders.
I didn't get a chance to talk to him. I only been in the previous meeting. I wasn't in the one after I talked to him yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I
but
got
the
loaded.
last conversation we had with them was that they were okay doing the 0.25. It does not matter to me, 0.025, okay? But it does not matter to us if we want to pull the home builders out and the general contractors and look at both of them for next year. But what's at question here is the 1,400 other job classifications that we're trying to get down to 400, and it's got to be done before year end. And so, I think that this is more complicated and we need more education, more input if we're going to try. Well, I don't want to kill the whole deal because we can't figure out what to do about the general contractors and the home builders. That would be our comment.
Chairman. So I don't disagree with that. Some people are going to be paying more than what they've been paying or than what they've been paying, like say with the home builders, we're only doing 30,000 gross receipts and they go from 125 to 500. So it may all work out in the wash where they're okay with it.
Don didn't really understand.
This is much bigger. I mean, this is a huge consolidation, which I think is good for the city. Before I get into these other things we need to add, and they may be in here, this change, I want to make sure I understand this tax on items to be resold. It is someone who goes and buys a popsicle from the store with the intention of reselling it, and that's been established. Are they paying tax when they purchase it, and then when they sell it, somebody else is paying tax? So
If they're buying at wholesale, then they're not.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I understand that right. That if somebody is buying something for resale, like say, for example, somebody buying a lumber package that they're going to sell to a homeowner, if they're buying it for resale, they're not paying tax on it up front.
Yes, we are. You pay tax on
For
everything.
resale, if they're reselling,
Sell it.
They don't. It's not a resale.
Then we're not trying to change that.
I'm just making sure I understand it from this deductive reasoning of why you can't pay more. So if they'll pay tax when they purchase the lumber package, and then the homeowner, they'll be paying tax on the purchase of the new home. So
The homeowner, if I'm buying the contract, I purchased that lumber and it's got a sales tax in it, then I am the contractor, I'm gonna put 10 and 10 or whatever it is on top of that. So yes, you're taxing up the tax that you pay.
Okay. all right. So there's other categories. I got it. I got an understanding of it now.
Yeah.
The gambling and weed, are those in here now?
Gambling and weed. What type of weed?
So Ricardo's going to talk to you about that. Okay.
I colloquially refer to it as weed, not marijuana.
You've been way out there today.
Yes.
Man. So I gotta check you.
So
every now
what
and
what
then.
we would refer to is gaming and the use of cannabis are not in here. They're specifically not in here because of two things. One is we don't know where the state is going to go on those issues, especially this legislative session.
Are you talking about the cannabis clinics? That's what you're talking about?
with just any purchase of
marijuana products.
But they're taxable anyway, wouldn't they?
They
I
will
mean,
be.
If they're
They-
sold over the counter, they're taxable.
They will be, and we've not addressed them because we don't know exactly where the state is going to go on those issues. I get trying to get in front of it.
Can you explain that?
Sure.
I don't
So
know. Go ahead.
so you remember the cannabis is so new that we properly zoned it,
All right.
but you don't have all of the confines that you're going to need to properly tax it just yet.
But taxes paid at the point of sale.
I agree with you. If something changes, we don't want to be locked in. Right now, we have
Changes
a catch-all.
how?
Well, if the state decides, hey, this is how you're going to tax them in a different manner, and that may happen.
Okay.
That may happen. Now, gaming specifically, the state has not come down on the gaming law. I mean, the lottery showed up time and time again. Other gaming showed up, but the legislator hasn't come to a conclusion on that. We'd much rather follow the state's lead on those two issues. We specifically excluded those two.
Other states don't.
Okay, let's go back to Mr. Reynolds.
Go ahead.
Do you have any more questions?
I haven't, what's the downside of preempting them? Again, you may have said it and I just didn't catch it, but if we preemptively say, if you're going to play cards or bet the dogs or whatever it is, in order to conduct that business, you shall pay X, Y, and Z.
Because that authority has not been vested upon the cities. We get all of our power here at the local level from the state. We don't have home rule. That's the downside of it. We do not have home rule.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't. I know we don't.
Okay.
On what?
We don't have home rule
On what?
on
Home rule.
anything.
RULE rule.
On anything. All of the power that is vested in the cities and the counties emanates from the state.
But we can raise taxes by vote.
Depends on what tax you're talking about.
Sales tax.
Sure.
We
yes,
can't
sir.
raise,
Sales
we can't
tax,
raise ad
property.
valorem taxes. But we can vote to raise the millage on ad valorem taxes.
So your point is well taken, but that's the distinction without difference. So sales tax, all within the confines.
Let's
of
not
your-
get into ad
Ad
valorem
valorem,
taxes.
yeah.
I'm not, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, the net gain from this consolidation will equal approximately what for the city?
I couldn't tell you the exact dollar amount.
But it will be a net gain,
It will be, yes.
and it will be significant.
I say I don't know, I would say significant, but it will be a gain.
Okay, and the city currently charges a issuance fee of $10 per every license that it issues, correct?
That's correct.
And if this is going to be a net gain with this consolidation and obviously make us more efficient in government, I don't see the need to continue to charge $10 per license issued.
So
Wow.
what kind of make is that you get 20,000, about 20,000 transactions a year to do that. So if you, a state law can change to just $200,000. That money will never be recovered. Okay? That will be a sunk cost of you issue a mandate to provide a service at no cost to the individual. You're paying for paper, you're paying for stamps, you have to mail. Some of this stuff has got to be mailed.
So we're required by law, for instance, by the state to actually do mail outs. So you have to get a paper copy in the mail. You also, at the end of the year, we have to do a mail out on renewal notices. It's required by state law.
So is there what is the net right now on
Wait,
your?
wait, Ben. I thought that,
Wait. Now, Mr. Carroll, Mr. Reynolds has the floor.
but I thought that just changed.
The net on your expense associated with these mandates, mailing, that sort of thing, versus what you're collecting on a $10 fee. What is that delta? What's the difference between the two? Is the government losing in money on collecting a $10 fee versus expense?
I will tell you, it's quite expensive. We don't do that ourselves. I mean, this is something that we have someone locally actually do for us as far as doing the printing them, paying for the postage, because, for all of this. So, I mean, there's, like I said, multiple mail outs that we're required to do by state law versus you can't just email it you can't email it. It would be nice if we could email stuff, but we can't. So this covers some of that cost that we incur.
Yeah, but I think
So
Mr. Reynolds' question is, does it cost you more to collect the $10 than $10?
Yeah, that's the question.
Yes, well, I would say it does, is because if you look at the labor involved in preparing this for that, I would say yes.
Okay, so the gain from the consolidation here, that's just money to the good, just for the government, just we're consolidating, becoming more efficient. That
I'm still not sure y'all understand the question.
I think we've lost it somewhere.
The question is, does it cost you more to collect the $10, just to collect the $10 than $10?
So
Okay.
does it cost more to collect the 10? No. But what I think what Donna was answering the question is, does it cost us more than $10
I understand that. I
produce it,
to
understand
yeah.
that.
produce?
I understand.
That's a different story. But to your question, that's why I said no, because I'm listening.
that cost is fixed and it's not changing, right? The cost associated.
No. It's no. What we're asking, that cost is likely going to change from 10 to 14. And that's what the state sets that a sliding scale. And what we're asking you all to do is allow us to be commiserate with the state because the cost keeps going up.
Hold on. You're saying cost, not cost to the consumer or the purchaser of the business license. I'm talking about the cost. If we sell 20,000 licenses right now a year, and we expect to sell 20,000 licenses next year, our costs should stay relatively the same. Is that correct?
No.
There's no way.
And the salaries are
Okay.
going up.
All
everything's
right,
going up.
okay. My
Change.
Yeah.
Let's say, how many years have we been charging
Right.
tax and we've been behind the curve? This is just giving
Mhm.
possibly get close to being even. And this is never done to make money. I mean, it was done to improve the efficiency. And give an opportunity, knowing that it costs us more money to collect it each year, we will try to take advantage of that opportunity. The state realizes from all the other municipalities that it's a burden on them to absorb this cost.
Well, they don't do it.
Okay, wait a minute. Mr. Reynolds, are you finished?
I read.
Yeah, is it possible? Yeah, I know that in this year's rotation on state licenses, and I mean home builders and the commercial license, there's no longer paper copies sent out to any of us anymore. Right now, after the fulfillment of payment and testing of license, you download your license or a copy of your license from the internet. So if they're allowed to do that, then why aren't we as a municipality allowed to do the same?
It's required by state law as far as,
But
as
wouldn't it
far as
be
business
required-
licenses are concerned.
Well, this is a business license to be this is a contractor's license that falls under the same thing. It gives us the right to do business as contractors and to be certified. So if the state is saying we will allow you to download your license without them mailing us a hard copy anymore as of this year, then why can't municipalities do it?
Because they require us to do something different, and because we're required to do something different. We're required to mail it out. I hear your
Have
distinction.
we not asked yet to see why? Because this is something that's just changed. So I mean, it's worth the ask to find out if it's a savings
Sure,
to us.
I think it absolutely is worth asking. But as the law stands right now, it requires. Now, let me point this out to you too. The overwhelming majority of these changes are minute. You all have talked about the big ones. I also say this. I often discourage us from doing things exactly the way other cities do them just because they do them that way. Because in particular, I would as compliment to you all and our professional staff, Mobile does a better job than a lot of other places at a lot of things. All right. Just does. Council staff included. So we're trying to improve on what's already there, but also take advantage of the state law allowing us to move forward.
Well, I'm not going to scream too much because I'm biased with the contractor's law. So whatever's fair, I hope this council will find a way, but I'm going to get out of that context.
Okay, if I could summarize where I think we are, which is that y'all are going to change this to have a $500 flat fee for the contractors.
Yes, and that's included in that packet. We've already done that.
Everything else remains the same. And when do y'all want us to vote on this?
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
And-
Yeah, this coming Tuesday. Want it before they got to
It
have it
needs to
before
be
the end of the
done
year.
so that we
Ju-
can implement the changes before business license are due in January.
Mr. Chair, just for clarification too, contractors, including the Home Builders Association contractors, or are they fine? You've reached a agreement with them and they understand. We're just talking about contractors.
No, we're talking about all of them, I think.
Okay.
So let's do this, because your perfect question. I was on the opinion after Jim talked to Carol. that
Yes, sir.
he had talked to the home.
I haven't talked to him.
Our last conversation with the home builders, they were fine with
Mhm.
the .0025, less their subs, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that's how it's written right now. But if you want us to, they told us they were fine, this is the head of the Home Builders Association.
I can see how they would be happier with that than $500.
No, they don't. They're happy the other way around, but I don't think they're realizing that for every piece of material they purchase that they're giving subs, they're gonna have that .025 status gross receipts.
Well, what we'll do, we'll call
Yeah,
back.
you would just check with them.
We'll call back, we'll make sure they understand that they could have the same option as the contractor. But whatever we present to you will be what they have told us, that they're willing to do.
That's good. That's good.
And I'll make this comment too. That there are a lot, this was told us yesterday, there are a lot of contractors that come in from out of town, who could be subcontractors. Okay? Probably not so many general, that are not paying any taxes. They're skating through the system, okay? So we've got to figure out a way to plug some of those holes, and maybe let's just say parking day. It may be that we require to see the list of all the subcontractors, and then we have a way to cross-reference some of this stuff. But it's all part of trying to make sure that we're not taking advantage of it, because the general contractors are telling us, the way we were kind of headed is, you're penalizing us because we live here, we're going to pay. Some of these guys are not, and they don't take the chance. And so that's when we said, let's get our heads together and figure out how to close some of these loopholes. That's right. We'll do that. We'll get back.
Okay,
to you.
okay.
Good deal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What did we do with the other stuff? There was the other Nexus codes that was supposed to, where were that? Was all that?
All that, that's
All at one time?
All at one
Yes, sir.
time.
Everything at once.
1,400 to 400.
Sharp knife cuts the quickest.